The galaxy had a simple belief. Humans were not a threat. That belief would cost trillions of lives. For centuries, the Aurelian Concord had ruled known space. They were ancient, elegant, and impossibly confident. Their banners flew over thousands of worlds. Their fleets were flawless machines of war. No enemy had ever broken their lines. No rebellion had ever survived long enough to become a story worth telling. To the Concord, conquest was not violence. It was order. High Executive Vila Awenen stood aboard the flagship Radiant Doctrine, gazing at the slow spiral of stars beyond the viewing veil. His species had evolved on a world of calm seas and gentle skies. No storms strong enough to destroy cities. No predators that hunted in packs. Survival had never been a question for them. Intelligence had bloomed in comfort, not chaos. That comfort shaped how they saw the universe. Worlds with harsh gravity were labeled inefficient. Planets with unstable climates were categorized as failures. Species that evolved through struggle were considered flawed. The Concord called such planets deathworlds. Most deathworld species were strong, yes, but predictable. They fought directly. They burned out quickly. They surrendered when the cost became too high. The Concord had catalogued hundreds of them. Broken civilizations that proved one universal truth: strength without refinement always lost. Then the scouts reached Sol. The reports confused the analysts. The third planet was violent beyond reason. Oceans that swallowed continents. Tectonic plates that shattered cities. A magnetic field constantly bombarded by stellar radiation. A biosphere where nearly everything evolved to kill or resist being killed. Yet somehow, the dominant species had survived. Humans. They were inefficient. They were fragile. They were loud. They also refused to disappear. The Concord scholars debated whether humanity was even worth conquering. Their technology lagged behind. Their political systems were chaotic. They fought each other constantly. From the Concord's perspective, humans were already halfway to extinction on their own. Vila approved a routine integration fleet. Nothing excessive. Nothing dramatic. A lesson, not a war. What the Concord did not know was that humanity had been listening. Decades earlier, deep space arrays near the Kuiper Belt caught fragments of alien transmissions. At first, they were dismissed as cosmic noise. Then patterns emerged. Then structure. Then meaning. Linguists, physicists, and cryptographers worked in silence for years. When the message was finally decoded, no one celebrated. It described the cleansing of an entire species. The report listed casualties the way humans listed fuel consumption. That was the moment Earth changed. There was no public announcement. No panic. No speeches. Humanity had learned long ago that fear spread faster than truth. Instead, preparations began quietly. Governments stopped arguing. Corporations stopped competing. Old rivalries became irrelevant overnight. Humanity did not unite because it was noble. It united because extinction was unacceptable. Shipyards were carved into asteroids. Research stations vanished behind false mining permits. Engineers were given impossible problems and told failure was not an option. Every discipline, physics, biology, psychology, warfare, was pushed beyond known limits. The most important discovery was not a weapon. It was the human body. Compared to Concord species, humans were absurd. Dense bones. Redundant organs. Muscles adapted to constant gravity. Nervous systems trained to operate under fear, pain, and chaos. Where Concord pilots blacked out under high acceleration, humans remained conscious. Where alien ships turned slowly and elegantly, human vessels moved violently. Human ships were not beautiful. They were functional. And they were terrifying. Still, humanity waited. When the Concord fleet entered the Sol system, there was no resistance. The invaders saw orbital stations and lunar colonies and laughed. Their sensors confirmed what they already believed: primitive defenses, scattered forces, no unified fleet. Executive Vila authorized the first demonstration strike. The target was a small human outpost orbiting Jupiter's moon Europa. Before the weapons fired, a single human vessel appeared. It was small, angular, scarred. Concord commanders assumed it was a scout or a desperate signal craft. They did not bother to track it seriously. Then it accelerated. Concord navigation systems screamed warnings. The human ship was pulling maneuvers that should have liquefied organic matter. It did not slow. It did not retreat. It moved like a creature born to violence, threading through energy fire with deliberate intent. The first Concord cruiser vanished in a flash of kinetic impact. Then another. Human weapons did not glow. They did not announce themselves. They arrived at relativistic speed and erased ships before shields could respond. The human vessel changed vectors mid-attack, something no Concord pilot could survive. When Concord forces finally destroyed it, they boarded the wreckage. They found the pilot still alive. Broken. Bleeding. Smiling. Through a translator, one Concord officer demanded to know why the human attacked alone. The pilot coughed, blood filling his lungs, and answered simply, "You weren't supposed to see us yet." Then he died. Across the Sol system, hidden fleets powered up. Humanity had not built a wall. It had built a storm. And the galaxy was about to learn the difference. The Aurelian Concord had faced rebellion before. It had faced resistance. It had never faced confusion. Executor Vila Awenen stood silent as casualty reports scrolled across the command veil. Numbers updated every few seconds. Destroyed cruisers. Disabled carriers. Lost crews. The figures were still small compared to the Concord's vast military strength, but something about them felt wrong. The pattern was broken. Human attacks did not follow doctrine. They did not advance in formation. They did not defend territory. They appeared suddenly, struck with precision, and vanished into darkness. The Concord fired back with overwhelming force, yet more often than not, there was nothing left to hit. Vila summoned his war council. "They flee," one commander said with irritation. "They avoid decisive battle." "That is because they are afraid," another agreed. "Deathworld species always are." Vila did not answer immediately. He replayed sensor footage from the Europa engagement. The human ship's movements were still difficult to process. No hesitation. No wasted motion. The pilot had not been reckless. He had been intentional. "These humans," Vila said slowly, "do not behave like prey." That sentence unsettled the room. The Concord doubled its fleet presence in Sol. Heavy carriers arrived. Long-range artillery platforms deployed. Entire human colonies vanished under orbital fire. Cities on Mars burned. Stations near Saturn went dark. By all logical measures, humanity should have been collapsing. Instead, the attacks intensified. Human vessels began striking supply convoys. Fuel depots exploded light hours away from the main battle. Communication relays failed without warning. Concord ships found themselves blind, isolated, hunted. Worst of all, human losses did not slow them down. The Concord measured war by efficiency. Lives were resources. Losses were unacceptable beyond a calculated threshold. Humans seemed to operate under a different equation entirely. They lost ships. They lost pilots. They kept coming. A Concord patrol ambushed a group of human fighters near an asteroid belt. The engagement lasted less than 2 minutes. When it ended, the patrol reported 3 human ships destroyed. Victory. Moments later, one of the destroyed ships detonated its reactor manually, ripping through the Concord formation. 2 cruisers vanished instantly. The patrol commander barely escaped. Suicide attacks were not new to the galaxy. But these were different. The humans were not desperate. They chose the moment. They waited until maximum damage was guaranteed. The Concord began capturing humans alive. Interrogations yielded little at first. The prisoners did not beg. They did not plead. Many refused to speak at all. Others spoke freely, but said nothing useful. They talked about home. About friends. about weather and food and music. One officer demanded answers from a captured human engineer. "Why do you fight?" he asked. "Your defeat is inevitable." The human shrugged. "So was ours. Then we decided it wasn't." That answer was recorded and classified as irrational. The Concorde's greatest mistake was assuming irrationality meant weakness. Human tactics evolved faster than Concorde analysts could track. Each failed ambush taught them something new. Each lost pilot became data. They adjusted weapon frequencies, changed shield harmonics, altered fleet spacing. The Concorde had perfected war over centuries. Humans were reinventing it weekly. Vila authorized a full system siege of Earth. This would end it. Massive weapons platforms moved into position. The Concorde announced its ultimatum: surrender, disarm, submit to integration. Humanity did not respond. Instead, Earth went dark. No transmissions. No signals. No activity. Concorde sensors detected power drops across the planet. Cities vanished from scans. Satellites shut down. To Concorde intelligence, it looked like collapse. Vila felt relief. Then the planet spoke. Human defense arrays erupted from the surface, hidden beneath oceans, mountains, and cities. Weapons that had never been detected fired in perfect synchronization. The first salvo did not aim at ships. It aimed at space itself. Gravitational distortions rippled through Concorde formations. Ships lost orientation. Some collided. Others tore themselves apart trying to correct impossible vectors. Human strike fleets emerged from positions the Concorde believed physically unreachable. The sky around Earth became a killing field. Human pilots pushed their vessels past safety limits. Blood vessels burst. Bones fractured. They kept flying. Medical systems flooded their bodies with stimulants and stabilizers. Pain was acknowledged and ignored. The Concorde responded with brute force. And it failed. For every human ship destroyed, 3 Concorde vessels followed. Human fleets coordinated across distances that should have caused fatal communication delays. Later, Concorde scientists would learn the truth. Humans did not wait for commands. They trusted each other. Each pilot understood the intent, not just the order. They adapted independently, acting as parts of a single, chaotic mind. Vila watched Earth hold. Not win. Hold. That was worse. The war dragged on for months. Then years. The Concorde's outer systems began to feel the strain. Reinforcements rerouted. Resources diverted. Other subject species noticed. Some resisted. Some revolted. The Concorde had never fought on multiple fronts. Humanity was not trying to conquer the Concorde. It was infecting it. Vila ordered the capture of a senior human officer. He needed understanding. Commander Elena Torres was brought before him. Her ship had been disabled. She was wounded but alert. Her eyes held no fear, only exhaustion and resolve. "You cannot win," Vila told her. "Even now, our empire endures." Torres nodded. "We know." "Then why continue?" She met his gaze. "Because you don't understand what winning means to us." Vila waited. "You think victory is survival," she said. "For us, victory is choice. As long as we choose to fight, you haven't beaten us." Vila felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. "You are burning your future," he said. Torres smiled faintly. "No. We're buying it." Vila realized then what the Concorde had misjudged. Humans were not fighting for territory. They were not fighting for dominance. They were fighting for time. And somewhere beyond Concorde's sight, humanity was building something the galaxy had never seen. Something born not from peace, but from pressure. And when it arrived, the Concorde would finally understand what a Deathworld truly created. Fear was not an emotion the Aurelian Concorde respected. It was a malfunction. A weakness to be corrected. Yet fear was spreading through their fleets. Ships hesitated before entering human-controlled space. Commanders delayed aggressive maneuvers. Analysts rewrote probability models daily, only to watch them fail within hours. Every prediction about human behavior collapsed under new evidence. Humans did not retreat when cornered. They did not surrender when outmatched. They did not break when losing. They adapted. Executor Deathworlder Armada reviewed long-range intelligence gathered from fractured data streams. Human ship construction had increased despite ongoing losses. Industrial output on Earth was rising, not falling. Entire facilities appeared and vanished between scans. The humans were hiding something, and they were doing it well. Deathworlder authorized deeper incursions into human space. Entire systems were scoured. Asteroids pulverized. Moons cracked open. If humans were building something, the Concord would destroy it before it could be used. What the Concord found instead were traps. Human engineers turned mining tunnels into kill zones. Energy signatures disguised as wreckage detonated when scanned. Abandoned stations lured Concord boarding teams into confined corridors where gravity shifted violently without warning. The humans turned their own losses into weapons. Captured Concord crews reported something worse than defeat. They described human voices laughing over open channels. Not mockery. Not madness. Relief. As if combat was familiar ground, a place where humans finally understood the rules. That confused Concord psychologists deeply. Fear was supposed to paralyze. For humans, it sharpened focus. On Earth, far below the fighting, humanity worked without pause. Not in panic. Not in chaos. In rhythm. Scientists slept beside consoles. Engineers ate meals standing. Entire generations grew up knowing the sky above them was filled with enemies. They did not ask if humanity would survive. They asked how much it would cost. Children were taught orbital mechanics alongside history. Teenagers learned emergency vacuum procedures before driving. Fear was not hidden. It was explained, understood, used. And in secret facilities buried deep beneath Earth's crust, humanity's true response to the Concord took shape. The project had no public name. Even within classified circles, it was referred to only as the answer. It was not a weapon in the traditional sense. It was a system. Humans understood something the Concord never had. War was not just about destroying the enemy's ability to fight. It was about breaking their certainty, their confidence in how the universe worked. The answer was designed to do exactly that. While fleets bled across the Sol system, humanity quietly reached outward. Not with ships, but with signals. Mathematical proofs embedded in background radiation. Artificial anomalies seeded in subspace. Patterns only advanced civilizations would notice. The Concord noticed. At first, they dismissed it as noise. Then curiosity took hold. Concord researchers followed the patterns deeper, unraveling layers of impossible physics. Human science was crude in presentation, but terrifying in concept. Where the Concord sought stability, humans exploited instability. They used spacetime the way a climber used cracks in a cliff face. Deathworlder received reports of Concord research stations destroyed by experiments that should not have been attempted. Human theories, half understood, pushed Concord scientists into catastrophic failure. The humans were not just fighting ships. They were attacking assumptions. Meanwhile, human fleets continued their war of shadows. They never sought victory in a single battle. Instead, they forced the Concord to respond everywhere at once. Supply lines stretched thin. Subject systems grew restless. The image of invincibility cracked. The Concord began losing worlds not to humans, but to rebellion. Deathworlder demanded results. A massive offensive was planned. The largest fleet ever assembled by the Concord would enter Sol and end the conflict in one decisive strike. Earth would burn. Humanity would be erased. Fear would return to the galaxy. As the fleet assembled, Concord intelligence detected a massive human structure under construction beyond Neptune's orbit. At last, Deathworlder ordered immediate assault. What they found was not a fortress. It was a door. The structure did not fire weapons. It did not maneuver. It activated. Space folded. Not collapsed. Not warped. Folded. Human fleets vanished from sensors across Sol, then reappeared light-years away. Concord ships attempting pursuit were torn apart by gravitational shear. The structure was not opening a path through space. It was rewriting distance itself. Vila understood too late. The humans had not been trying to stop the Concord. They had been trying to escape its rules. The answer allowed humanity to move in ways the Concord could not follow. Entire fleets repositioned instantly, striking across Concord territory without warning. Worlds thought safe were suddenly vulnerable. Command centers vanished overnight. The war was no longer contained. It was everywhere. The Concord scrambled to respond, but its strength had always depended on predictability. Logistics. Control. Order. Humans shattered all three. Human commanders coordinated attacks across impossible ranges. Civilian evacuations happened faster than Concord sensors could track. Humanity was no longer defending Earth. It was redefining the battlefield. Vila felt something he had no word for. It was not fear. It was realization. The Concord had believed Deathworld species were shaped by suffering into something crude and violent. They had never considered what happened when suffering was combined with intelligence, cooperation, and time. Humans did not evolve to dominate their planet. They evolved to endure it. And endurance, Vila now understood, was more dangerous than strength. As Concord fleets burned across distant stars, Vila received a final transmission from Earth. It was not a threat. It was not a demand. It was a statement. "We don't need to defeat you," the human voice said calmly. "We just need to outlast you." Vila stared into the stars, watching his empire unravel piece by piece. For the first time in his long life, he understood that certainty was not a law of the universe. It was a luxury. And humanity had never had it. The Aurelian Concord had ruled through certainty. Every world they conquered learned the same lesson: resistance was inefficient. Survival came from submission. Order was enforced not only by fleets, but by belief. The belief that fighting was pointless. Humanity shattered that belief. Across Concord space, the war was no longer measured in battles won or lost. It was measured in delays, disruptions, and doubt. Trade routes failed without explanation. Garrisons vanished overnight. Messages arrived too late to matter. Entire systems learned that the Concord could no longer protect them. And when certainty died, fear replaced it. Not fear of humanity. Fear of chaos. Some subject species watched the conflict carefully. They had suffered under Concord rule for generations. They remembered burned cities and broken cultures. When human fleets appeared near their systems, they did not fire. They waited. Human commanders broadcast simple messages. "We are not here to rule you. We are here to end the war. We will leave." The idea was unthinkable. Every conqueror claimed benevolence. None ever kept it. But humans did something no empire had ever done before. They proved it. When a rebel world requested evacuation instead of military support, humans sent transports, not weapons. When a liberated system asked for defense, humans trained local forces instead of installing governors. Human fleets passed through worlds and did not stay. The galaxy noticed. Vila Arwen watched reports pile up, each one worse than the last. The Concord was losing influence faster than ships. Worlds were choosing neutrality. Others openly declared independence. The Concord's response, force, only pushed more systems away. This war was poisoning the Empire from within. The Concord launched its final gambit. A weapon developed in secrecy. A planet killer designed not just to destroy Earth, but to fracture spacetime around it, ensuring humanity could never escape again. The weapon required immense energy and a fixed firing position. It would end everything. Human intelligence discovered the plan within hours. For the first time since the war began, humanity gathered its fleets. Not in ambush. Not in shadows. In open space. Every human ship capable of flight answered the call. Warships scarred from years of fighting. Civilian vessels retrofitted with weapons. Experimental craft never meant to leave simulation. They formed a line between the Concorde weapon and Earth. The galaxy watched. This was the battle the Concorde had wanted from the beginning. A direct confrontation. Numbers versus numbers. Power versus power. Vila commanded from the center of the Concorde formation. He expected desperation. What he saw instead was calm. Human fleets did not maneuver aggressively. They did not charge. They held position, knowing exactly what they were facing. The Concorde fired first. Space turned white with energy. Entire human squadrons vanished in seconds. Ships exploded. Signals died. The line held. Human reinforcements arrived through folded space, replacing losses faster than the Concorde could calculate. Medical ships pulled survivors from debris fields. Commanders rotated damaged vessels out with mechanical precision. Humans were not sacrificing themselves blindly. They were managing loss. Vila ordered full power to the planet killer. The weapon charged. Human ships surged forward. The battle became chaos. Close-range engagements. Boarding actions. Collisions at impossible speeds. Humans fought hand-to-hand inside Concorde ships, ignoring wounds that should have ended them. Vila watched as human pilots rammed their vessels into Concorde reactors, not in rage, but in calculation. Each loss bought seconds. Seconds bought distance. Distance bought opportunity. And then the answer activated again. Not to move fleets. To speak. A pulse rippled through subspace, carrying data to every advanced civilization in range. Proof. Evidence. Records of Concorde atrocities, verified and undeniable. Entire histories laid bare. The Concorde's narrative collapsed instantly. Vila realized too late what humans had done. They had not just fought the Concorde. They had put it on trial. The planet killer failed. Not from sabotage. From abandonment. Power stations across Concorde space shut down as systems declared independence. Crews refused orders. Commanders hesitated. The weapon powered down, unfinished. Human fleets did not pursue. They held position. Silence followed. Vila looked at Earth one last time. It was scarred. Wounded. Still standing. He understood then why humans frightened the galaxy. They were not the strongest. They were not the most advanced. They were something far worse. They were contagious. Their refusal to accept extinction had spread. The war did not end with a surrender. There was no grand ceremony. No signatures carved into metal. No victory parade across the stars. The Aurelian Concorde simply stopped. Fleets withdrew without orders. Garrisons abandoned worlds they could no longer justify holding. Command networks went silent as systems chose their own paths. The empire that had once ruled through certainty dissolved into fragments, not because it was destroyed, but because it could no longer convince the galaxy that it deserved to exist. Executor Vila Armada remained aboard the Radiant Doctrine long after the fighting ended. His advisors urged him to flee, to regroup, to rebuild somewhere far from human reach. He refused. For the first time in his life, he wanted to understand. Human envoys arrived not as conquerors, but as witnesses. They did not demand territory. They did not demand reparations. They demanded only one thing. Never do this again. Vila listened as human representatives presented the evidence one final time. Not as accusation. As record. Every world erased. Every species silenced. Every life reduced to a statistic. The Concorde's greatest weapon had always been forgetting. Humans did not forget. What will you do now? Vila asked. The human answered simply. Go home. Rebuild. Learn. Vila struggled with that answer. The Concorde had never learned from defeat because it had never known one. Humans had learned from nothing else. Across the galaxy, new alliances formed. Not empires. Networks. Mutual defense agreements built on choice, not fear. Humans participated, but they did not lead. They advised. They warned. They remembered. Earth reopened to the stars. Not as a throne. As a lesson. Young species visited Sol to understand how a deathworld created something so stubborn. Human historians showed them ruined cities rebuilt again and again. Human scientists explained failures that became foundations. Human soldiers spoke of fear not as shame, but as fuel. They taught one truth above all others. Survival is not about comfort. It is about refusal. The answer was never used again. It remained dormant, a reminder rather than a threat. Humanity dismantled parts of it willingly, proving to the galaxy that power did not have to become domination. Years passed. Then centuries. The Concord faded into history books, studied as a warning. Empires rose and fell, but none ever made the same mistake again. Whenever a civilization considered conquest, there was always someone who said, "Remember the humans." Not because humans were gods. Because they were not. They were fragile. They were flawed. They were afraid. And when the universe tried to erase them, they chose to endure. That was why the stars remembered humanity. Not as conquerors, but as the species that taught the galaxy a dangerous idea. That no matter how certain extinction seems, someone will always say no.